Our son was about 10 when Shahzad was diagnosed, and we did not tell him immediately. He went to visit some relatives in California, and when he came back, I told him at the airport as his dad was getting ready to pick him up, because I felt he could run into his arms or, express himself however he needed to, and tried to keep it very positive. But children are very intuitive. And he said, "Mom, I already knew." "How did you know?" I just did, Mom. So I don't know what that answer is for him, how he really knew. But he allowed himself to cry when he needed to cry. I took him with us to that Leukemia and Lymphoma Society conference so that he could learn all the amazing work that's being done to find a cure. And there were so many people that gave him that positive reinforcement that he needed at that time. And I think it did present itself through his academics for a while. And he's not one to really talk about his emotions or show them. So he did go through a difficult time, but he was just as hopeful about CAR-T as we were. So he actually told me at that time, he said, "Mom, please don't ever hold anything back. Don't hide it from me again. Just tell me up front." And so we made that agreement, and we tell him as we go along. Every child's different, but for our son, he wanted the truth, and that's what worked best for us. But there were no resources per se. There's no guidebook on how to recognize how it's affecting them. It was tough. For parents that are dealing with the diagnosis and treatment that have young children, my best advice is just be in tuned. Know what your child's needs are. Know if they are behaving differently or having difficult times, maybe at school or with friends, any maybe not even so obvious behavioral changes. And just always try to keep it positive, just like we did.
It's very important. Stay positive.
Having children during chemotherapy or even with the diagnosis of cancer is possibly the most traumatic thing ever. It's just when you, as a parent, it's your job to protect them, and it's your job to ease their pain. And then when you find out that you're sick and you look in their eyes and you know that your illness has caused such pain and heartache, it's really difficult. But I think for them and for us, it was being very open and transparent with my treatment, my course, telling them reassuring them that there are options and that I'm going to look for every option that there is. Because as long as I had hope, they had hope. And that's all we could do was give them the same thing that we had, that my husband and I had. And so that is tough. And my kids were young the first time. I had a 6 and a 12-year-old. And then I had, flip side to that, then I ended up having a 12 and an 18-year-old, a 17-year-old at the time. So, I went through both adolescent and young ages with it. It was rough. But I remember when my hair started to fall off and it was coming off in just clumps. And I decided to shave my hair. And this was the first time. And the boys had such a good time because I gave them the clippers to do it. And so I had a mohawk. And then they shaved it down the sides. And, we just took control over it as a family. The second time, kind of the same thing. My hair started to fall out and the boys were older. So it wasn't as comical at that point. They knew, they had been through it. And I shaved my hair because of what had happened. And my oldest son grabbed me by my face and he held my cheeks and he says, "Mommy, you look so beautiful." And he kissed me on my forehead. And I'll never forget that. He just looked deep in my eyes and he goes, "Mama, you look so beautiful." And I thought, wow, through all of this, he still could see the beauty in it. Because at that moment, I was just heartbroken that my kids were watching this. And it was just a very different experience.
But dealing with kids is tough. And I think it affected my daughter's college career. She did some stuff that she shouldn't have done. And she got away with some things that if I wasn't distracted, I wouldn't have let her get away with. And I know my youngest son, who's been in the house through all of this, and now he just went off to college when we went to, he was just going to college at UNC when we went to Ohio. And he's very sensitive. He's a great kid, but I know it's affected him, to see his mother go through all of this. Difficult for kids. And it requires a lot of extra strength for the adults. So that's what I would say. If you're the caregiver for a CAR T patient, you got to buck up your kids. You got to support your spouse and rise to the occasion, because anything short of that is going to be a mess.